The Atlanta Falcons took an L to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 23-20, and we're going to talk about it on this episode today. But before we get started on that, I want to tell you guys to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share, and tell a friend, to support my channel. My Atlanta Falcons took an L to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They lost 23-20. It was a pretty competitive game. A little bit of a back and forth, transaction. A lot of highs and lows. Typical divisional game. So not really too surprised that the game was as competitive as it was. But again, my Falcons took a loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And look, man, this was tough. This was a tough game. Some tough loss. Heartbreaking loss. The Atlanta Falcons on opening game ones of the season, things have not gone well for the Atlanta Falcons in week one. They have now lost 7 out of their last 8 opening game one games since 2018. The Falcons they're 1-7. And so game ones, whether they're on the road or at home, they don't go well for the Atlanta Falcons in those situations. And they took another loss. But like I said, there's a lot to get into when it comes to this loss and how things fared out. There were some positives in this game for sure, but there were some negatives. And when I'm looking at the blame pie, there's a lot to sort through. But when I look at this game and when I look at how the Falcons lost this game, and look, I know people are gonna look at Younghoe Koo, and don't you worry, people. I'm gonna get into him in a moment. But I wanna talk about in my opinion, I think the biggest culprit, if I want to say as to why I think the Falcons took this L to the Bucs, I got to look at the offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson. I was not happy with Zach Robinson's play calling in this game. Like, I just wasn't. And look, I'll be honest, I'm not the type of person that likes to get on offensive coordinators too much. I'm not the type of person that likes to blame play calling and this and that and the other. Like, that's just not how I roll sometimes. But I got to admit, like, I was not pleased with Zach Robinson's play calling, in particular on these short yardage situations. When the Falcons were in 3rd and 2, 4th and 1, the 3rd and shorts, like it felt like Zach Robinson was kind of in over his head a little bit. The wide receiver screens are just annoying me. Like, they don't work. Like he called a wide receiver screen to Drake London and he got stopped on like a 3rd and 6. That's one play that stood out to me. He's calling these running plays towards the middle. We have Vita Vea, who's arguably the best run-stopping defensive tackle in that whole league. He kept running at him, and he just got stuffed. And him being in this pistol formation, with Michael Penix as your quarterback. Like, what are we doing? I felt like the running plays were too predictable for my liking, and I felt like Tampa Bay, they were just all on it. They stuffed the run. Every time the Atlanta Falcons were in 3rd and short, 4th and 1, 3rd and 4, whatever the case may be, and every time the Falcons ran the ball, Tampa just shut it down. And look, maybe you want to blame the execution on those plays, but I as a fan, I can look at some of the plays that the Falcons were running on those third and short situations, and I'm like, they're gonna run the ball and it's gonna get stuffed, and that's exactly what happened. And so I was not a fan of Zach Robinson in his situational play calling on those third and short situations. And many times throughout that game, I felt like Michael Penix had to bail Zach Robinson out because Zach Robinson would make a bad play call, and then on the next down, it felt like Michael Penix had a big run or he had a big pass, and it kind of overcame it at times to position the Falcons to get first down on those plays. And so, like I said, man, I in my opinion, I felt like Zach Robinson put the Falcons in tough situations throughout that game. And there were times when, like I said, Michael Penix overcame them, but there were also times throughout that game where the Falcons couldn't overcome the bad situational play calling that Zach Robinson put the team in. And so this was not a good Zach Robinson game. I don't think he did a really good job calling the game. Like I didn't. And I'm not the type of guy that likes to get on OCs, for play calling and all that stuff at times. I'm usually a big players got to execute guy, but I in this situation, it's hard not to look at Zach Robinson and just think that I thought he put the Falcons in a bad spot with some of his situational play calling, on key third and fourth downs. And so that was disappointing. Like the Atlanta Falcons on third down was 6 for 15. It was not great. And, not terrible, but like I said, not great. And so I look at those factors as to why I thought the Falcons ended up losing this game. And so like I said, Zach Robinson, to me, he's got to redeem himself moving forward, or else there's going to be a lot of just Atlanta Falcon fans looking at him as like a problem, for the team, and so that's my first culprit when it comes to the Falcons losing to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think the second culprit for the Falcons losing to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and look, I hate to bring him up, but I gotta look at Younghoe Koo, or as I'm gonna nickname him, Younghoe Koo. That's right. I'm calling him that, Younghoe Koo, because I don't recognize Younghoe Koo anymore. Younghoe Koo. Well, I'm gonna give you guys a statistic as to what Younghoe Koo has become, or as I'm gonna nickname him, Younghoe Koo. Younghoe Koo, on field goals between 40 and 49 yards, Younghoe Koo is now 8 for 14 on kicks between 40 to 49 yards. 8 for 14. That's not good. That's not very good. That's not good. Between 40 to 49 yards, he's 8 for 14. Kicks indoors, in the dome, field goals between kicks indoors, Younghoe Koo is now 9 for 16. It's not good. It's not good. Kicks indoors, he's 9 for 16. Overall field goals, meaning kicks indoors and outdoors, Younghoe Koo is 12 for 20. 12 for 20. Kicks overall, 12 for 20. And when you look at his field goal percentage last season, he was 31st in the league in field goal percentage last season. 31st in the league. Let me put that into perspective, people. Younghoe Koo is slowly but surely becoming one of the worst field goal kickers in the entire NFL. He is simply no longer a good kicker. And that is a problem. And in that situation, when you're down 23-20, and all you have to do is make the field goal and the game is tied and you go into overtime, and who knows what could have happened in overtime, all you have to do is make the kick. And it's not like it was from 55 yards or 60 yards like we saw the Pittsburgh Steelers kicker. Like, he made a field goal from 60 yards on the road. And for the Steelers to end up winning that game over the New York Jets. And by the way, that game was very entertaining, by the way. That was a very entertaining game. So it's not like Younghoe Koo had to kick a field goal from 60 yards or anything like that. He was in position to kick a field goal from 44 yards. That's makeable. That's reasonable. And all he had to do was make the kick, and the game would have been tied. Make the kick. 44 yards. It's not long. It's not super long. You know, it's solid for NFL kickers. 44 yards. All you have to do is make the kick. And the kick goes right. And he misses it. And the Falcons lose. I mean, there's just no excuse. Younghoe Koo, or I'm going to call him Younghoe Koo, he's got to make the kick. He's got to make the kick. There's no explanation for it. He's got to make that kick. Younghoe Koo? What happened to Younghoe Koo? Where is he? There's an APB out for Younghoe Koo because he's nowhere to be found. Younghoe Koo? Who is this guy? I can't recognize him. I don't recognize Younghoe Koo anymore because he might be washed. He might be washed up. My Asian kicker. I don't know what's happened to him, but he's a excuse me. Younghoe Koo has become a shell of himself. I don't know what happened to him. But this kicker that I'm witnessing for the Atlanta Falcons, and by the way, this has been going on for the past year and a half or so. Like, Younghoe Koo he just doesn't have that magic anymore. Younghoe Koo? Where is he? I don't know what happened to Younghoe Koo. I don't know what happened to him, but the kicker I'm watching for the Atlanta Falcons is not that guy anymore. And if I'm Terry Fontenot and if I'm Raheem Morris, I have to be looking for a new kicker at some point because field goal kicking might be the difference in this team missing and making the playoffs. I mean, you can't be losing games because of missed field goals. Like, that can't happen. But that's what happened against Tampa Bay. You know, the Atlanta Falcons had a chance to tie the game. And the Younghoe Koo missed the field goal. Or as I'm going to call him from now on, Younghoe Koo. Younghoe Koo needs to get it together. And so that's another culprit for why I think the Falcons ended up losing that game. And so Younghoe Koo, he's got to get it together because Younghoe Koo, I don't recognize him. And I think the other reason why I think the Falcons also lost that game to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and look, the defense, I want to say this regarding the defense. I think the defense actually did some good things. You know, you held Tampa Bay to 260 yards. You had them under around 4 yards per play. You know, you didn't allow them to get anything going on the ground. Baker Mayfield only threw the ball for 171 yards. He was 19 for 35. Now, he did have 3 touchdowns, and like he had those last 2 touchdowns he had were, you know, you got to give him credit. But look, man, he only got sacked 1 time. And yeah, you can say that the Atlanta Falcons sent some pressure at him, you know, in particular when they were blitzing. But I got to tell you, when the Atlanta Falcons were rushing solely 4 guys at Baker Mayfield, I thought they had trouble getting to him. Like I said, the Atlanta Falcons only finished the game with 1 sack. And yeah, you can say the Atlanta Falcons generated some pressure when they blitzed and all that stuff, but dang it, we drafted James Pierce. And like you traded next year's first round pick. You trade up all the way in the late first round, you get James Pierce, and you drafted Jalen Walker. 2 edge rushers. And neither one of them were there to be found. Now, look, they're young. This is the first game. They're rookies. I got it. I understand it. And rightly so, they deserve some time to develop and find their niche in the NFL and to get used to the speed of the game. Like, I get it. I understand, and that's fair. But 1 sack is not going to cut it. Like, it's not going to cut it. And if you look at that last throw that Baker Mayfield threw to Emeka Egbuka, I think that's his name, the rookie wide receiver, who, by the way, he was impressive. He was as advertised, and so I want to give Emeka Egbuka credit, for Tampa. But the Falcons on that play didn't generate any pass rush, didn't get Baker Mayfield off that spot for him to not make that throw happen. And I thought the pass rush, at times throughout the game, in particular when they sent 4 rushers, like I thought they had trouble getting to Baker Mayfield. Like it took the Atlanta Falcons blitzing. And usually when you're blitzing more, you're a lot more vulnerable on the back end when you blitz. Teams in the NFL don't blitz half of the time because it's just better when you blitz, when you send 4 people, it creates more opportunity for DBs to make plays in the back end because there's just more DBs and linebackers covering. The more people you bring pressuring quarterbacks, the less dudes are there in the secondary to cover. Whereas if you send 4 people, there's more dudes in the secondary back to cover. And so I thought that touchdown that Baker threw, like, look, it was a great throw for Baker Mayfield. Like, give him credit. That throw to Emeka Egbuka, like, you got to give him credit for that throw. It's a big-time throw, and Emeka Egbuka is going to be a very good receiver in this league, and Tampa Bay got themselves a special one. But you got to get more pressure on the quarterback. We got to figure out a way to get Baker Mayfield on the ground. And 1 sack is disappointing to me. You got to get him on the ground. You got to get Baker Mayfield on the ground. You just have to. And I thought the Falcons defense, granted, they did some good things. No question about it. Divine Dabolo, the linebacker that we got from the Raiders, he was outstanding. Outstanding game out of him. Very impressive. Xavier Watts, Billy Bowman, AJ Terrell. Like, I thought the secondary did a admirable job. And all of those guys made their share of plays. But 1 sack, it's not good enough. It's not good enough defensively. We got to get Baker Mayfield on the ground. And moving forward, we got to get these quarterbacks on the ground. And that's just the nature of the beast, man. And so I was disappointed at the fact that we got 1 sack. So this was a tough loss. But to be sure, this was a very tough loss for the Atlanta Falcons. This is a division opponent. It's a Tampa Bay team that many people, including myself, I'll admit, many people think Tampa's going to win the NFC South. Many people. And so you just, and so it's not no worst thing in the world to lose a close game to Tampa, but at the same time, you had an opportunity to win the game. You had an opportunity. You look at the stats. The Atlanta Falcons had 358 total yards. The Atlanta Falcons nearly had 100 more yards overall than Tampa Bay did. They outgained them on first down. The Falcons had 23 first downs. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers only had 16. You look at the time of possession. The Atlanta Falcons had 35 minutes time of possession. Tampa Bay only had 24. And so you look at the numbers. The Atlanta Falcons outplayed Tampa. From a yardage standpoint. From a first down standpoint, but at the end of the day, the offense only generated 20 points, and so, and a lot of that was just situational based. And so it was disappointing, to be sure, as to why I think Atlanta lost those games. But there were also some positives in this game. I'm not going to, I don't want to dwell too much on the negative because the Atlanta Falcons did some good things in this game as well. And I gotta shout out Michael Penix. Michael Penix was outstanding. Had an outstanding game. This was his 4th start, and I gotta tell you, in all 4 games that he has started, I think he's been very good in all of them. He has not had a game where I'm like, dang, this dude is terrible. This dude don't have it. Michael Penix, I'm continually being impressed with his poise, his moxie, his aura, his pocket presence. He has a pocket presence for a young quarterback that is rare. You know, you don't always see pocket presence from young quarterbacks. Like, you watch Michael Penix play quarterback, he looks like an 8-year veteran. You know, the way he's under center, he's going through his progressions, he's reading the field, he's seeing what the defense is giving him, and he's making the correct read every time. Every time. I was highly impressed with Michael Penix, and you look at his numbers. He was 27 for 42 for 298 yards. He had a touchdown. He had another rushing touchdown. His quarterback rating was 94. His QBR from 1 to 100 was 84. He had an 84 QBR, which if you look at it, if you compare the quarterbacks that played yesterday, you know, and how they performed, Michael Penix had the 7th highest QBR among all quarterbacks that played yesterday. The 7th highest. That was really good. He was really good. Michael Penix was really good. You know, when you look at how he performed, just making just going through his progressions. And here's the thing with Michael Penix. What I was impressed with Michael Penix was he took with the deep. He didn't force any deep throws. As a matter of fact, like, he didn't really complete any deep passes. Most of his throws were short and intermediate. And I thought he did a really good job. You know, he hit the running back when he needed to. Bijan Robinson had 6 catches for 100 yards. You know, and so I thought Michael Penix did a good job of finding him. We had a Kyle Pitts sighting. Kyle Pitts actually did some good things, and Michael Penix did a good job of finding him. You know, obviously, man, losing my train of thought here, but Darnell Mooney, you know, he didn't play, right? You know, Darnell Mooney didn't play, and Drake London, who I thought also had a subpar. I probably should talk getting to him a little more. I thought he was disappointing, to be honest, Drake London, but he got hurt in the game, and so you're left with Ray McCloud and Casey Washington as your 2 receivers, and Michael Penix was still making stuff happen. You know, just making things happen, you know, making plays. You know, when you look at how the Falcons were just, you know, you look at that 4th down, you know, when a play needed to be made, Michael Penix made it, and he made it with his legs. And I think that's the other thing that I was impressed with Michael Penix. You know, a lot's been made about him not being a mobile quarterback, you know, but I got to tell you, I think Michael Penix is more mobile than people give him credit for. Like, he can move a little bit. Like, you know, in the 2-minute drill, you know, late in the game when the Falcons are trying to position themselves to tie the game with the field goal, like, he was making some things happen with his legs. You know, there was a play where he ran like 12 yards and he slid, you know, and you can just, you look at Michael Penix, like I said, you look at his poise and his pocket presence. Like, he feels pressure. Like, he's not going to, when he's under pressure, like, he's not going to try to force it, you know? And so, like, he understands where to go with the football. Like, I was really pleased with what I saw out of Michael Penix. I was really, really, really pleased. Like, I thought, all things considered, he was under some pressure as well. Like, Tampa Bay, I thought, did a pretty nice job of sending some pressure at him, and he didn't flinch. Michael Penix did not flinch at all. He took what the defense was giving, and he made the correct read every time. When he saw Ray McCloud running a slant throughout the middle, and he found him, and he hit him in stride. You know, when Kyle Pitts was open, he found him. When Drake London was open, he found him. When Casey Washington was running a curl route, he found him. I thought Michael Penix made every read on that field, made every correct throw. He threw it accurately. He threw it with precision. I was really impressed with what I saw to Michael Penix. I really was. Like when I watched Michael Penix play football, quarterback the position against Tampa, it reminded me of a left-handed black version, stronger left arm version of Matt Ryan. That's what I saw when I looked at Michael Penix. That's what he reminded me of when I was watching Michael Penix. He looked like a blacker, stronger left-handed version of Matt Ryan. He was impressive. It was impressive. I was really impressed with what I saw to Michael Penix. And if you're talking about a Matt Ryan with a stronger left arm, that's a special quarterback to me. And I think Michael Penix, like, I think he's capable of doing this moving forward. The more and more you watch Michael Penix play football, and I know it's been 4 starts, and he's got more to prove. Like moving forward next week, he has the Minnesota Vikings on the road, primetime game. So he's gonna have to show that he can do some of this stuff on the road. But based on what we've seen so far, like, there's no denying that Michael Penix, through 4 games, he is looking every bit like the Atlanta Falcons franchise quarterback. And he's looking every bit like a guy that can elevate this team and can finally give this team some stability at that quarterback position, something that we've never had since Matt Ryan. And so Michael Penix, I thought, was impressive. Like, the Atlanta Falcons had a lot of issues yesterday against Tampa Bay. Michael Penix wasn't one of them. Michael Penix was the solution to Atlanta's problems against Tampa. Michael Penix showed up and showed out. And so I want to give my kudos to Michael Penix. He was outstanding, all things considered. What he had going on around him. Michael Penix, I thought, positioned the Falcons to win that game. And so I want to give my shout out to Michael Penix. I thought he showed up. And so I thought that was a positive. And like I said, defensively, the Atlanta Falcons defense did some good things. I was not pleased with them only getting 1 sack on Baker Mayfield, but I thought the Falcons did some good things. Like, you helped Baker Mayfield to 171 yards passing. You didn't allow Tampa to get going on the ground. Like Bucky Irvin, he didn't have a monster day. And so I thought that was a positive. The Divine Dablo, I want to shout him out. I thought he played outstanding. I thought he did a nice job sending some blitzes. He made some plays in the passing game. I saw him make some plays in the running game. I thought Divine Dablo, I thought played great. He's looking like a nice little addition, from the Raiders. And so I thought he was good. I like what I saw out of Xavier Watts. I like what I saw out of Billy Bowman. A.J. Terrell has some really nice deflections on Mike Evans. I thought he was solid. I thought the defense did a pretty good job. Some encouraging things from the defense. But we got to get to the quarterback. We have to get to the quarterback. That's something that's going to have to continue, But nevertheless, I thought the defense did some good things. But man, it was a tough game, tough loss. And also, I want to give a shout out to Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts showed up. Kyle Pitts actually showed up. I thought Kyle Pitts had a really solid game. Made some real nice plays to help out Michael Penix. Had some real catches. Had some nice run after catch. Showed some nice ability to run after the catch and break some tackles. Had a nice little stiff arm that was pretty impressive. Kyle Pitts looked good. I thought Kyle Pitts looked good. So I want to give a shout out to him. And Bijan Robinson didn't do much in the running game. He only had 44 yards rushing on 22 carries or something like that. Bijan Robinson couldn't get anything going on the ground, but He had over 100 yards receiving. And so he was able to make some stuff happen in the passing game, including that opening, touchdown, where he caught the ball on a curl route and he was able to go 50 plus yards, in an open field, and so that was that was pretty special, seeing Bijan Robinson make plays like that. And it kind of just shows you the kind of do-it-all running back that Bijan Robinson is, right? Like, this is a guy that can make things happen in the running game and in the passing game. And he's arguably, I think, the most complete running back in the league. And so I want to give a shout-out to Bijan Robinson as well. But, look, man, the Atlanta Falcons took an L. It's a tough loss. And we got to move on. We got to move on. So many things to be disappointed about. Like I said, I was not happy with Zach Robinson's situational play calling. Younghoe Koo, I think I don't know where I don't know what's going on with him, but this is going on for nearly 2 years, and I don't even recognize him. I mean, he's Younghoe Koo. Like, I don't know what's happened to him. And I'm disappointed that we only got 1 sack on Baker Mayfield, considering the fact that Tampa Bay, they have a retooled offensive line. Their best offensive lineman didn't even play. And we only had 1 sack. That was disappointing. But there were some positives as well. Shout out to Michael Penix. Shout out to the young dudes in the secondary. And look, man, shout out to Kyle Pitts. I thought Kyle Pitts did some good things, man. So, I want to shout out to him as well. And, Bijan Robinson as a receiver as well. Like, I thought he did some good things. So there are some positives, but, there were some disappointments as well. But, look, it's only week 1, and, we got 60 more games to go. And so moving forward, they got the Minnesota Vikings primetime game next Sunday. And I guess we're gonna see if the Atlanta Falcons can bounce back from this, and we'll see how they do moving forward, man. It's early. Week 1 is, nearly upon us. We only have 1 game left, with the Bears-Vikings game. And so week 1 is gonna be behind us, and we're on to week 2. And, the Atlanta Falcons, like I said, they got the Minnesota Vikings coming up. And we'll see how they look moving forward. And that's all I have. And, catch you guys in the next episode. Peace.